And of course, my dog is playing with an extremely loud toy. Hello and welcome to the Part-Time Gamers, a gaming podcast for people with full-time lives. I am Cernex, clocking in with my good friend 9 of 12. For whatever reason, your microphone keeps cutting you out.
It always just does that right at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, I don't know why. Just like that initial greeting is just completely buried.
I don't know. I say hup hup hup, and it'll like do a stutter beforehand.
Yeah. Need to like warm up the mic or just like say something like random and then say your intro.
Well, and we've been talking, so
Yeah.
it's a decision that Discord is making or something.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's supposed to have left.
Yeah.
He played the music.
Yeah. I don't know. It might be a setting somewhere on Discord like that. It's dipping out other people's voices or something. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. Anyway, yeah, we're back. Theo is still getting used to his schedule at his new job, so we're trying to
Randomly shifting schedule.
Yeah. Ugh. I can't stand that. Yeah. Like, yeah. I like stability.
Could be worse. I mean,
true.
My son got a job. He was hired by Lowe's like a month ago.
Yeah.
He's done the drug test and the onboarding and the walkthrough and an orientation. And then like, okay, we'll schedule before the end of the month. He's in the app. He's listed as a full-time employee. Still no actual schedule. And now it's the following month. And he's like, what am I supposed to do? Well, are you showing as an employee? Well, yes, I am. Well, write to this email instead, who will apparently not write back.
Yeah.
There's no phone numbers attached. So I got a number for the facility he's supposed to be working at, and they're like, yeah, you should, we'll give you a call back in a couple days. It should only take another week or two to sort it out. It'll just sort out.
That's always a great phrase from a big name company to say. It'll just sort out. Yeah.
It's not at all worrying to be that the management will be a problem when you start, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a good sign. But all that to say, we're happy Theo's seems to be doing well with his new job. And we're trying to acclimate to all this. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into our icebreaker.
Nice of you to drop by.
Never heard that one before.
So speaking of jobs, I decided to make our icebreaker work-related. So our icebreaker question today is, describe the worst boss you ever had to work for. What would he or she do? I still have to kind of think about this because I tend to get along well with most of my bosses. I think that's one of the main reasons why I succeed at jobs I'm clearly not qualified for. 'Cause just like my main, like one of my main things is, as long as I can make my boss laugh, then I'm usually in pretty good shape. That's one of my goals. I think I have one in mind though.
Yeah, it's hard. I've had some doozies.
Yeah.
Usually not, but probably the worst was I was temping, and I went into a company that does floor, like the floor mats, industrial rugs, company.
Yeah.
They pick them up and they clean them and they take them back, drop them off. Businesses subscribe to these services, and
Yeah.
I went in and I got introduced around the office to everybody, and it was like all the trucks were all dudes. Everybody's out there doing,
Yeah.
that hard work, and then the office was full of like really pretty all blonde ladies for some reason, and except the woman who was my supervisor, and I had been hired to help her handle dispatch.
Okay.
So you gotta look at the schedule. You know, your drivers are, you're making the calls, sending them here, there. You know, dispatch. Um, and it can be challenging, but I've got a good brain for that kind of thing. You know, so if I, all right, I'm
Yeah.
good. Except I was there maybe an hour and a half, and she left after telling me like, I didn't want you here because I don't really need any help. Just they insisted on bringing somebody in.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, I'll just help however I can. Just, you know, what do I do? And she leaves. And so I just handled it. And uh everything went really smoothly. I was like, well, shit, this is cool. Like, I didn't screw up. Nobody's got a problem. Like, I think she dropped in like right before the shift ended. She said, how'd it go? And I was like, oh, well, you know, here's a note from, you know, this guy. And she looked a little surprised.
Yeah.
And then I got called by the temp agency and said they didn't want me to go back. And yeah, I was like, what happened? I thought it went really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I was literally told I wasn't perky enough. Because I don't know. I guess I was supposed to talk to everybody like this and like make sure they were okay. I don't know. I did the job.
Yeah.
And it's a point of pride really later though. Like it sucked to not have a job again at that
Yeah.
moment, but it
Ugh.
was like I've been
Yeah.
fired for not being perky enough.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. So mine was so I was working initially working as a uh why can't I not think of words? It was like basically a shipping associate or whatnot at a food distribution company near here. I was doing that, but I wanted to try to I kind of like topped out on my pay scale. So I was trying to figure out, and the work was terrible. I mean, the work itself was okay. The people I had to work with were awful.
Oh no.
So I was trying to find a trade company that would teach me on the job because I don't have any trade school education or anything like that, but I wanted to try to figure out. So like one of my friends was a carpenter for a while and they get paid pretty well and everything. So I wanted to try to figure out a company that would train me on the job. So found this company, and it was called like New Life Custom Carpentry or something like that. So I figured, okay, they're going to be doing carpentry work and all that jazz. So I contact the guy. He tells me, okay, go to this job site. So I go there with the first day, work with one of the employees and everything. And he tells me, okay, now you need to drive basically across the state to get to this other job site. And it was like literally about a 2-hour drive to get this other job site. It's like, oh, okay. So I go there, and I don't know. This is the furthest I've driven in that direction. So I don't know the traffic patterns. I don't know any of that stuff. So I end up getting there about 10 minutes late for the first probably like 2 or 3 days that I go there. First of all, the boss of the company is not even there. Is just like working with some of his other associates. And we're putting up what's called hardy board siding, which is almost like it's almost like a cement board siding. And we're doing that. We're starting to put that up, and I'm basically just moving stuff around and not actually getting up onto the walls or anything like that. And I eventually asked, like, so do you actually do any carpentry? He's like, nope, this is all we do. Okay, so your company's name has carpentry in the name, and you're working with cement
Just
board.
siding.
Yeah, just siding. So I worked there for a while. They keep on sending me over to this other far location, and so I started on Monday, go through that week, uh, do the following Monday, and then about an hour after I get home that following Monday, the boss texts me and says, "We don't need you." Just fires me over text. And yeah, and then it's like, okay, that's great. So then I'm with unemployed, so I try to file for unemployment. And the guy basically said, like, the unemployment agency contacted him, of course, and he flat out said, "Oh, he's not an employee for us. He never was." And he brought up this certain law or certain like unemployment rule that if an employee makes less than a certain amount of money, they're not required to file a W-2, so that they are technically not employed by that company. He knew this off the top of his head, which means he's probably done this to other people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so because he said that I wasn't an employee for that company, they had to go back to my previous one, which I voluntarily quit to work for him. So obviously I couldn't file for unemployment under them.
Ooh.
So thankfully I was able to get another job within, I think that was when I worked at a car wash for a couple months or something like that after that, just because they always have a now hiring sign up and it was in the area. So thankfully I was able to get something pretty quickly after that. And then the guy who so there's one of my sister's friends from her area told us about the job. So he was one of the guys I worked with the first day. He then tells my sister that he was thinking of quitting because the guy is being even more skeezy. And then just like my sister was starting to get frustrated with him because, like, if you knew that he was doing skeezy stuff, why did you tell me to tell my brother about this?
Right?
So there was this whole just fiasco, and my family members blasted this company on social media at the time, and it's like the guy was just skeezy and taking advantage of people, and yeah, so it was just a horrible situation. So I would have to say that that's probably my worst boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a different, like, I'll spit it out quick. Most paranoid, weird employment situation, because I got a job where I was, you know what shoppers are, right? People go in and they shop stores to check whatever that they're, employees aren't stealing, security, customer service,
Yeah,
checkups.
like an undercover
Right.
shopper.
And I've done undercover shopping,
Yeah.
But I had a job calling around to department stores, shoe departments, and pretending like I had specific questions and had to figure out how to ask them questions to determine whether the shopper that said they had shopped there.
Okay.
Like, ask the same sort of things they were supposed to have asked, and tip it off. And, oh, somebody was asking me that the other day. Like, determine if the shopper had shopped it. And then I had, like, to fill out my little form. And I had to report to, it was like a trailer, basically, with a bunch of people in cubicles and phones. And then, so I did that, and I had a whole, like, call sheet of all the calls I made, and I had to log all my calls, and here's who I talked to, here's my result of the call. And then I don't get the call to go in the next day, and I call, and I was, what's going on? They're like, oh, well, they have somebody who is calling or looking at the log and listening back to make sure that you made the calls. Like, they were shopping me, but like they had to prove somehow on the back end that I made the calls to call to check to shop if the shopper shopped. And then they called me like a week and a half, 2 weeks later with like, oh yeah, they determined that, like, you did make the calls you said you made, and they want you to come back. I said, no.
Yeah.
Like, that is a level of crazy. Like, no wonder the damn shoes cost what they did.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
Yeah, so all in all, I think money sucks, and I hate like I
Yes.
so
Welcome to late stage capitalism,
yeah,
folks.
and I'm not even going to get into it. I was going to make some AI comments, but I'm not going to get into it anyway. Let's go ahead and get into our water cooler talk.
You get that thing I sent you?
All right, let's go ahead and get into your article about the next Pokemon game.
Pokemon game.
Yes.
So apparently, like, this is the first time in 9 years that there hasn't been a new Pokemon RPG, and my son like was watching, and I know a lot of people were watching the Pokemon Live event last week, and I started to tune in, but then I had something else to do, so I went looking for that, and it's got a really weird name, Pokemon Legends Z to A.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it was worth bringing up because it does seem to confirm all the rumors we've been hearing that I reported on. I don't know, was it last month or something? That Nintendo Switch 2 is coming. Looks like in 2025. On that note, I did see other stuff like they've dropped development tools. So, I mean,
Yeah.
along with just rumors, that's pretty much a go. But according to the trailer, Lumio City looks to be undergoing an urban redevelopment, and Nintendo has since confirmed the game will take entirely take place entirely within the city setting.
Yeah.
So, cool. I don't know if Lumio City. I'm assuming I should ask my son before the show. He knows every location and every Pokemon somehow.
Yeah.
If that's, I'm assuming because they mentioned it's undergoing urban redevelopment, that this must be an older city in that universe.
Well, yeah, because it says it's
Excuse
supposed to
me,
be a
but they
follow up.
also,
Yeah, it says it's supposed to be a follow up to Pokemon Legends Arceus, which takes place in the past.
yes,
So it
and
would
I
make
like that one.
sense.
It's neat. Like
Yeah.
we've never gotten around to it. I put it on our list to play for a long time because the setting is so cool. To me, Arceus had this um it's in the ancient past, basically, and you're a time traveler, but instead of being hokey about it, it's kind of a world where you're discovering training. Like only some people, most people still think you just need to kill them because they're all dangerous,
Yeah.
and they're all wild things. So it's kind of the beginning of training, and to move into this one where you know super modern urban redevelopment could be really interesting. I'd love it if you could carry your character over, but I don't know if they'll be going that far. But they
Yeah.
did say they'll be releasing on Nintendo Switch systems,
Yeah.
and given how old the old one is, I think they're waiting, and my guess, my prediction is they'll release them together, and you'll get those special Switch systems that are come in the colors, and you can probably
Yeah.
get
Like a Pokemon
Pokemon
themed
ones like you
Switch
could get
2.
the Mario ones before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's mentioning closer to the end of the article that they're predicting specifically March 2025 for the Switch 2 to come out. Which I've been wanting to get a Switch for a while. Like I have a Switch Lite behind me that I don't use very often still, but I think getting an actual like full Switch to put on our TV upstairs and be able to like play Mario Kart and stuff like games like that with my kids would be cool. But with the Switch 2 potentially on the horizon next year, that could potentially be a really good birthday gift for my oldest daughter next year. So I might have to hold off until then. But yeah, when it comes to Pokemon games, as much of a fan of Pokemon that I am in general, we were mentioning in our pre-show this, like the last Pokemon game that I played with any sort of consistency was Fire Red, which came out in like what? It was a remake of Red, and I think Fire Red came out in like early 2000s, something like that. I think I was still in like high school when that came out. That's the last Pokemon game that I've played consistently. Other than like, although I did play like Pokemon Smash. I think that's the thing. Anyway, no,
Oh,
Pokemon
the
Stadium. That's what it was. Oh,
a lot of the complaints about the game quality going down since Scarlet and
yeah,
Violet is mentioned in this, which totally makes sense to me. My son was very excited, waiting for the next Pokemon, and deciding between Scarlet and Violet. Like you always got two, and they're
yeah,
red, yellow, whatever. That's their thing. And his friend got one, so he got the other one, so they could trade stuff, and then they went back to older
yeah,
games now. Because that was a big
yeah,
disappointment for everyone. So hopefully, even though they're probably just waiting for the new Switch, they take the time to get that basic series back on track.
yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with like that Marvel's doing right now because you pump out so much stuff and you're overloading the system and it just the quality goes down. I mean, it's just kind of inevitable. There's a few good hits, but other than that, is a big dip in quality. It's the same thing with this. Trying to hit that cadence of a game a year when there are games out there that have been in development for 10 plus years. Looking at Project Zomboid, which has been in early development for like more than a decade.
Being limited to being on the particular machine is another challenge
Yeah,
that like they needed to spend more time on other aspects so that
yeah,
it didn't look janky. They've got formula that work,
yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
but you don't
Oh,
want it to look like the one I've got. I've got Game Boy Color. What's the big triangular one? Looks like a cassette player. Is it the
oh,
original? They've got carts.
yeah. There's
I've got a
Game
couple of
Boy,
those
Game
that
Boy
somebody,
Color, Game
gave
Boy
us.
Advanced.
Yeah, somebody.
Yeah, there's a lot of Game
I
Boys.
was working in politics with. Well, I was crashing at somebody's house I was working in politics with, and his roommate found out I was a nerd and gave me two of those for my kids.
Wow,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, I have an emulator on my tablet actually for Game Boy Advanced, and that's where I have the ROM for Fire Red. I did originally own it. I did have a copy of it, so I'm just it was paid for technically. But for those out there who have any objection to getting ROMs, but that's still my favorite. It's just like it gets to a point where in Pokemon where it's like the Pokemon just get absurd. It's like, is that a chair? No, it's Pokemon. It's
Those ones are so neat. Like
it's
the one
just
that's a
irritating.
candelabra is so cool.
No,
But
it's
I'm
just
not a real Pokemon player. I like Arceus, which is a whole different like RPG type thing, and I like Go. So
yeah,
I don't do the whole handheld Pokemon games. It's never been
yeah,
my thing.
yeah.
Too busy making sure my kids could have those things.
Well, that's understandable. Sacrifices we have to make as adults. All right. Getting to my article. A big game that's been going around lately, another very successful game, is Helldivers 2. I've
Everybody in the
been
world is playing that freaking game.
Yes, including me. I've already gotten up to, I think in the last week I've gotten up to somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30 hours in it. It's really fun. It really is. It's like the things that shouldn't work, like that things that wouldn't work in any other kind of shooter work super well in this one somehow. Yeah, developed by Arrowhead, which is the same developers for Magicka. So it has that same level of absurdity. But specifically, one thing that is amazing is the headline for this article is Helldivers 2's Galactic War is orchestrated by just one guy. There's one of their employees named Joel, who is he literally has the title Game Master, where he can make adjustments to the game on the fly. So it's like there's a quote in here. Let me see if I can find it. We have an actual person, Joel, with the job title of Game Master. We have a lot of systems built into the game where the Game Master has a lot of control over the play experience, something that we're continuously evolving based on what's happening in the game. To the point where it's like, in the middle of the night, to give the automatons a bit of reinforcements, they had to wake them up in the middle of the night to give a bit of reinforcement so the players don't take the planet too quickly. It's like they just have the power to just like, okay, we need to make this planet more difficult.
Oh. All right. So this is like Sword Art Online, right? You're just
Yeah.
in the game.
Yeah, this is an online game. Oh,
No,
But yeah.
I mean the plot is you're a PC. Like there's a game master, they have to crap, somebody ran into the edge of the world, or there's a balance. Somebody has to make a balance, like waking up the programmer to make a balance adjustment, right? Because
kind
you
of,
took
yeah.
an area too fast. Like that's what it sounds like. Your PC's in there, like
Pretty much. Oh, I mean,
All right.
it's just hilarious because like
you're in the simulation.
yeah, I mean the fact that they actually have someone on staff that can do this stuff on the fly is amazing. And one of the reasons why I think independent studios are awesome compared to, AAA studios and everything. Because like they have the ability to make these pivots and to do these things that are just kind of off the wall ideas. And how many times, especially lately, have we been hearing these big success stories of independent studios as opposed to AAA studios? And it's like we have Helldivers 2, we have Pal World, we have Lethal Company, which we're going to get into later, which is, I think, literally one guy. It's not even a company technically. But all of these independent studios that are just getting these, just magical hits coming out, and we're getting things like Diablo 4 is bombing now because it's just soulless corporation going to corporate. And things like that. Granted, there are a couple AAAs out there that are still doing really well. Like, I'm extremely
meanwhile.
jealous. I'm extremely jealous of anyone who has a PS5 right now and is playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because I have to wait a year to play it on PC probably and try to avoid spoilers. Which that was another fiasco. Apparently, there was an article that spoiled the ending within 24 hours of the game being released. Anyway, getting off track.
And meanwhile, I had to dodge like a minefield to find a story that wasn't about layoffs and more layoffs.
Oh, that too. Yeah. Anyway, again,
Like,
corporate's going to corporate.
Let these guys do these jobs and look at this kind of innovation.
Yeah.
I my friend Eric, like in real life, I went out for a drink. Last 2 times I met him out. Have you played Helldivers yet? Oh my god, you're gonna play Helldivers. Like my son, I didn't think I was gonna like it, but oh my god, it's so good. He was on and on about it and like telling me how much I'd like it, and like, Sean, you know me.
Yeah.
It's a rare shooter I'm gonna be into, but he was so convinced I would be so into this.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's a couple things it can get very difficult. There are lower settings that you can play on, but it is not balanced. It doesn't dynamically balance the game based on how many people you have. And it's up to 4 players. It's meant for 4 players.
Oof.
So it's like, if you're like, you can play it solo, but it's going to be the same experience as if you were playing with 4 players. They don't.
How cross-platform is that?
It is currently, I don't know if it's on Xbox yet. It might be, but I know for sure it's PlayStation and PC, Windows. Because it was published by PlayStation Studios or whatever their PlayStation development or whatever is published by them. It's one of the few instances of PlayStation releasing a game simultaneously on PlayStation and PC. And I think actually the last time they did that was Magicka. So, but again, getting back to the article, I just think it's hilarious the fact that this whole thing, they have such fine-tuned control over the Galactic War, with this one specific employee named Joel, who can have a bunch of control over how the the war is going. I think that's awesome. Helldivers 2 is definitely going on our list of games to talk about. It is perfect for that.
Yeah,
So
it's
I want
PS5 and PC. Although demand is high, it does not look like it's coming to this platform. It's Sony saying,
well, yeah,
no,
it's
no, mine.
yeah. Although if
Like
it
they do.
yeah, if it ever did go to Xbox, Joel have his work cut out for him because there's a lot of shooters on Xbox. They have a lot of experience. So they'd probably have to ramp up the difficulty a little bit. But love the game. Again, I'm just amused. That's pretty much it.
Cool.
I thought it was a fun article. So before we get back to work, I just wanted to mention our Patreon, patreon.com/PTGcast. If you like what you're hearing, other than the random, flubs in my mouth, you can help us out by dropping us $1, $5, $10. It all helps out. And you can get some recognition, and you can get our pre-show and post-show content as well. It's about an extra half hour of content of us BSing about random stuff like how, Pokemon are weird. Yeah. So that is at patreon.com/PTGcast. With that, let's get back to work.
Morning break is over. Morning break is over.
All right, so our theme for this month, we're kind of breaking a couple of rules that we normally have for the show. Typically, I try to stay away from early access games. I like to have the full experience, be able to talk about that full experience because it's less likely to change in that time frame. This month, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. Our entire theme for this month is early access games. So we're going to be talking about where the game is at now, what we kind of hope to see the game as it goes on. And specifically today, we're going to be talking about one of those kind of banger games that's come out this year. Actually came out last year. Lethal Company. Developed and published by, I'm going to choose to pronounce this as Zekeris. Zeekers. I'm pretty sure it's actually just one dude. Yeah. So yeah, he's got a couple other games on Steam. None of them seem to have hit as hard as this one. $9.99 for Windows via Steam. Pretty cheap game. And it is. So another thing is I've been playing this co-op with Jess from the Opinionated Luscious podcast. Usually Monday nights. And we've been having a blast with this. Excuse me. It is a co-op horror game for up to 4 players, unless you mod it. There's, I believe, a mod that allows you to play up to 16 players or something like that. It can get kind of ridiculous. But players are playing as these employees to this mysterious entity just referred to as the company. And you're sent out to these various moons to salvage items from these abandoned facilities. And the items can be weird. Like some of them are more traditional, like, oh, you found a giant axle, or you found a sheet of metal. And sometimes you find like a whoopee cushion, or, like a magnifying glass, or a foghorn, stuff like that. Air horn. But the gist of the game is that you're going out and salvaging stuff. Players have 3 days to go to these different moons, salvage items, bring them back to your ship, and try to beat your quota for those 3 days. At the end of those 3 days, you go back to the company building on whatever planet it's called. I think it's just the company building in the menus, and you give them all your salvage. Hopefully, you beat your quota. If you succeed, you go another 3 days with a little bit higher quota, and that's the flow of the game currently. As basically, it's almost like a roguelike, where you're just trying to go as far as you can go. There is no end to the game. You just keep on going until you fail. And then when you fail, you are fired. I'll put that in quotation marks. So that's the basic flow of the game. And some of the little bit more nuanced stuff is like, while you're in the ship, you can pick which moon to choose, which moon you go to. Oh, some of them are free, which is good, but some of the ones that are worth more scrap, or have more scrap, cost you a little bit of money, cost you a couple of credits, but they also usually have more hazards. So it's this this kind of balance of danger and reward, risk reward thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I find kind of cool is the actual surfaces of the moon. When you land on the moons, the area that you go into and all that, the entrances to the facilities, those are all fixed. Those are all the same. For each moon. Each moon obviously is different, but it's always the same when you go to those moons. The facilities themselves, though, are randomly generated every time you go to that moon. So it's, again, kind of a roguelike element where it's just randomized. You don't know where loot is. You don't know where enemies are. You don't know the layout of the facilities. And some of these facilities are just labyrinthian. They're just... So a tactic that I use whenever I play with Jess is I will follow one wall. I'll try to follow, like, specifically just go along the right wall as far as I can go. So that way when I'm trying to run back either from an enemy or my flashlight runs out, I just have to follow the left wall back out. Usually it works. Sometimes I still get lost, but yeah, because there's hazards, there's creatures, there's turrets and mines and pits and stuff like that in the facilities. There are many ways that you can die. And one of the most hilarious clips that I have from Jess is we literally just exit the ship and she dies in quicksand almost immediately. Didn't even get into the facility.
Wow.
Yeah. Didn't even get into the facility. She just somehow found quicksand and died in it. So that's one of the...
I'm looking at some fantastic reviews. It does have overwhelmingly positive reviews.
Yeah.
I did want to mention it should be, if the developer's goal is reached, it'll be full version next month.
Yeah, somewhere around there, yeah. Because
it came 6 months.
As of
is when it
October,
is-
yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. Now...
And, yeah. Although it's, done except for potential. But I gotta say, the people reviewing are all over the place, but there's a average Amazon worker experience, I think, is
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah, whenever I do streams with Jess on this game, I refer to it as the American Workplace Simulator.
Yeah, I've heard you call it that.
Yeah, because that's...
People next door really love this game. Called the police 3 times now. I was screaming a bit too much, so 10 out of 10.
Oh, but it's definitely pretty good on the horror elements. And so there was actually a discussion I had with Jess while we were playing that for the horror elements, the visuals aren't really all that important. If there was any one way to describe the visuals of this, it's probably janky. This, like, the run animation for the characters is really weird. It's got a kind of like that almost like retro aesthetic to it, like almost like PS1 era aesthetic to it with the visuals. Some parts a little pixelated and everything like that. But one thing that he nails very well is the sound design. It's like, if you want to make an effective horror game, you need to nail the sound. Visuals are optional. I mean, Phasmophobia, this have shown that, but the sound needs to be spot on. I think they do a really good job with that. Because again, once you get into the facility, all of the ambient noise is just kind of, you don't get any of the outside ambient noise. You get this just metallic echo of the hallways, and you'll hear just like random stuff off in the distance. You don't know if it's actually a threat or not, or if it's just background noise. It always gives you this sense of tension because there's noises that you don't recognize coming from somewhere you don't know, and you don't know if it's a threat. So it just gives you that tension, which I think is done very well. Because again, there's threats in there. There's inside and outside threats. One of the most entertaining outside threats is a freaking sandworm that just comes out of the ground and eats you. It just gone. So one of the other little nuances about that specifically is so there's a time factor to this. You arrive at the planet at 8:00. You have until midnight to get off the planet, or the ship will just leave without you. But once you get past 5:00, that's when creatures and stuff outside become more active and become more dangerous. So if you're trying to get salvage back to your ship after 5:00, you're in pretty big threat then, including the it's actually called an Earth Leviathan. So, and again, it's just that tension because there's a sound. There's actually one game I think this past Monday that I played with Jess that we were getting back to the ship. It was like 7:00, and I start seeing the screen rumble and everything. And I'm pretty sure that was the Earth Leviathan trying to get me. But I was specifically underneath a structure. I think as long as you're like underneath a structure or on top of rocks or something like that, it can't get you. Because when we got into the ship, the ship has a screen that shows enemies and loot and stuff like that around the players. There's this giant red dot just circling the ship, and that's definitely the Leviathan walking or digging underground under us. So I think we lucked out there. But yeah, and so there's those hazards. Dying on these moons is extremely likely. Like I mentioned, you can die from quicksand right out of the gate. Which, death of one part of your team is not that big a deal. I mean, you'll lose whatever they're holding, but you're otherwise kind of okay. If your entire team dies, though, everything that you've accumulated up to that point is lost. So there was one point where me and Jess had like almost 400 credits worth of salvage, and our quota was, I think our quota was 370 or so, and I think we were at like 365. So all we need to do is just go in, literally grab one item, come back out, and we would have been good. And we got cocky, we got a little bit too ambitious, ended up both of us dying to freaking hoarding bugs inside the facility. We lost everything the day before we were supposed to go back to the company.
Oh.
So there was no time for us to recover anything.
So then you just you lose and start over, or is this a cloning situation like?
Well, it's basically like they don't really say specifically. I would assume probably some sort of cloning, although it's like they.
Okay, so you have another life. You just lost all your loot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you come back to the ship at the beginning of the next day and everything like that. But yeah, you lose all your salvage. Like I said, we didn't have any time to recover anything. We had to go right to the company building and deposit nothing because we lost everything. So I do recommend that you have like a full team of 4 is the best situation, because you can, if something like that happens, you have a little bit more of a buffer.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, once you get walkie-talkies, because you can get items and stuff like that, like flashlights, walkie-talkies. Eventually, you can get jetpacks and zap guns and stuff like that as well. A really good tactic is when getting walkie-talkies, having someone stay in the ship, because they can monitor things. They can actually hack turrets and mines in the facility. They can keep track, and they say, hey, like, because they'll see symbols that show the loot, the salvage that you can get.
You want a chair guy.
Yeah, basically. It actually is really helpful, but you can't really do that when you only have like 2 people. Right. And also, if something happens and everyone in the facility dies for whatever reason, they can just pull the lever and take off with whatever they have in the ship. You don't have to lose anything. So if anyone would like to join me and Jess on Monday nights to play Lethal Company, we would appreciate it. Because right now it's just the 2 of us.
Well, I can't.
Well, that's unfortunate.
It's not on a platform I can use.
We need to get you a computer. Oh, actually, again, I
Poor
need.
sad little computer.
Yeah. Uh, so that's where the game is right now. Oh, so once again, the great people of game theory have come up with what they predict to be the actual story of the game. Because right now there is not really any story. There's lore bits and stuff that you can get in game, and but other than that, like I said, there's no end to the game. You just keep on going until you die. Uh, but game theory has done this whole theory where I think is really fascinating. We'll probably put a link. The link is in our show notes. But the gist of it is that the company is actually started off as a weapons company, and as their weapons advance, they started off with like traditional turrets in the mines. That's why you find those in the facilities. But then they start getting a little bit more esoteric and coming up with like the coil head, which is kind of like a weeping angel. They come up with like the Jack in the Box. They come up with the Nutcracker. They come up with like all these other different weapons and stuff like that you find in the facilities. And eventually they get to the point where they like the theory that they have is the building that you're actually taking all of this salvage to. You never see a human. You never see a person. You never see any kind of being there. Basically, you're just putting all your salvage into a slot and it goes from there. But you're always hearing this low growl. And the prediction, like the theory is that it's some like world destroying entity that was developed by the company that they put into this building to try to just keep it away from everything else. The problem is it has this insatiable hunger, and that's why you're gathering scrap. That's why you're going to these facilities in order to basically satiate this massive world destroying beast. The problem
You're gathering
is,
a bunch of metal and stuff.
yeah. And actually, like the thing that is the most valuable that you can get are bars of gold, which again, this like some of the lore bits imply that there's this planetoid that it was thought of to be the core of a planet that was destroyed by this entity, and that the surface of that planet is mostly gold and valuable metals. So gold, this thing seems to have an appetite for gold. So
It's
finding,
Megatron.
well, it's more Unicron than anything else. But but yeah, it's like gold is the most valuable thing you can feed it, and like the theory is like that's why you're giving it scrap. That's why your quota keeps on going up, because the more you feed it, the more you have to feed it. But the theory for the story is that eventually you're going to run out of scrap. Your quota is going to be way too high, and you're going to run out of scrap, and it's going to break out of the facility and start destroying planets. Or what they found out is in the company building area, if you do a little bit of parkour through the facility, you can get underneath like the main platform. There's actually a drill that's pointed at the wall of this building. So another potential theory of where the story could go is, there's lore elements that say that one of the like a past employee had a walkie-talkie when they went in there to the facility, and they got this signal from people inside the building. So the theory is that one of the potential options for the ending is you try to, in an attempt to save those people, you break open the wall with this drill that's underneath, and then that also releases the creature and destroys the universe type thing. So there's no real good ending in theory. Now, again, these are all just theories. Game
Company
theories.
store story. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why you think there's a good ending to that.
Well, yeah, but I think this would be a really good way to go. I mean, most things suggested by the theorists are pretty good, pretty solid. But it will be interesting to see what the developer actually does for a story mode or a story element to this game. Other than that,
Well, what clues are there to that? Because, like he said, it's done other than potential, but there have been some drops of DLC, and I think you can look at what kind of additions are planned based on the DLC that's been added, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, is there, I don't know is there official DLC for it or are there just mods? Because that's another thing about this game is it's very highly moddable. Oh, there's mods to add different world types. Like I've seen a mod for Minecraft world. Oh, there's one of the mods that is actually really interesting once they figure it out properly or optimize it properly is a mimic mod where there's just like an entity that it'll actually record bits of your audio. That's another thing is it has like proximity voice like in Phasmophobia. Oh, which is another really cool element to it. But it'll take bits of your voice chat and just like replay it at random points. Oh, I think there's supposed to be like a hidden sanity rating that like once it starts getting lower, you'll hear more of these echoes of voices, which can be really interesting. And it's like, yeah, that's bad. That character's dead, and they're still talking. So I know I didn't see any official DLCs on it, but yeah, there's
we
a
were
lot of
looking
mods.
at right before the show. Were there just updates?
Yeah, there's a lot of updates to it.
At least right now.
Yeah, but again, it's going to be interesting to see if it goes more than just that loop. If there actually is going to be a kind of story to it that you can interact with. I think it would be kind of cool to have. I mean, I could see it going either way, where there is an actual end to the game, where you try to accomplish something, you're working towards something. I could see that, but at the same time, I could also see it just being effectively just like a pure roguelike, where you just keep on going until you can't. Oh, I think that is kind of cool. That's still a pretty satisfying loop as well. I could see it going both ways. But yeah, overall,
What do you say for the purposes of part-time gaming?
it's
How long? Is it pausable? Is it
yes.
modules? Is it
Basically, anytime you're in the ship, you can drop out. You can have up to 3 different save files, so you can have 3 games going simultaneously with different people, different just scenarios and such. So it is very
players
much
duck in and out and you keep going?
yeah. You can have like I have a save file. Like since I host the game with Jess, the save file is on my computer, so theoretically I can just bring up that save file and we'll pick up where we left off. Which most of the time is at the beginning because we just previously died. But like with me and Jess playing in like an hour and a half, we usually go through like 6 days.
Nice.
So like
Okay.
2
so a good,
full.
satisfying game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can also it being broken up into like 3-day segments, I think is very good because you can just like go, okay, we're going to try to meet this quota. And then once you hit that, you can take a break and it's like, okay, come back the next time. We're going to try to get up to the next quota. And like, that's a very good off ramp right there is having it broken up into those quota periods.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it definitely feels like you accomplished something. Even when you die, I don't know, I'm really entertained by this game, more so than I thought I would. It definitely gets that horror element down with the sound effects. Again, with just like going into the facility and having that like metallic echo, the hallways, really, really good. Highly recommend this game. I mean, it's been around on YouTube. Various different YouTubers have been playing it. Like Markiplier is one of the big ones. Has been playing it a lot, and it's just if you're a fan of Phasmophobia, more than likely you will also be a fan of this. It does have a lot of the same kind of feel, but obviously different mechanics with the salvage and everything like that. You're not trying to find the ghost; you're just trying to survive and get as much stuff out. With the randomized elements of the facilities as well, it makes it so that each facility you go into is different. So I highly recommend this game, even in early access. I can't imagine it being nothing but better once it's fully released. Um,
Yeah,
so
it seems to have a really solid fan base.
yeah.
They've got a Discord if you're looking for people to play with. So
Or if you, like I've mentioned, if you'd like to play Monday nights with me and Jess, we can do that. We
Yeah.
have space for 2 more people. Although we will not be able to do it tomorrow because I need to go into work early on Tuesday this week. So, but for at least for the foreseeable future, Monday nights, me and Jess are playing. But, yeah, that's about all I got.
okay.
All right. So everyone, if you like what you've heard and like to help us out, a couple ways you can do that without having to spend anything is you can give us a review over on Apple Podcast. You can follow my Twitch and or the YouTube channels for our live recordings. It starts Sunday nights at 9:15 Eastern time is when we start doing tech checks, a little bit of pre-show. We start the show proper at 9:30. Or help us with our paychecks, you can become one of our patrons over at patreon.com/ptgcast. And with that, we'd like to thank our board member, Stephanie Hurst. Thank you for helping us out, helping with our paychecks. We really do appreciate it. If you'd like to contact us, you can with our email, parttimegamers.cast@gmail.com, or you can join our Discord channel. There's a link to our Discord on my website. You'll be able to find it there. Join the conversation. We have suggestions that you can make for us, and just talk with people that enjoy games, especially ones that you can play as an adult. Everyone, thank you for listening. Please join us next week as we continue our discussion of early access games with a game that I've been more or less obsessed with for the last couple weeks now. Finally going to be talking about Satisfactory, which actually kind of breaks 2 of our rules for this game or for this show, because it's early access and it's open world. And it does
It's not a rule.
well, it's just
You don't get to list like something you don't like as much as
well, okay, let me
a
rephrase
rule, or I have to quit.
Okay, it's not necessarily a rule as much as this game, it's probably potentially one of the least part-time gamer-esque games that we could talk about, because there are ways of making it so you can play this game for hours and feel like you've accomplished nothing. But there are ways of getting bits of fun out of it in short amounts of time. Not shorts amount. Letters. Anyways, we're going to be talking about Satisfactory. I'm kind of glad about that because I've been really enjoying my playthrough so far. Anyways, I'm Sean. You can find the show, the rest of my work, links to my socials, including our Discord channel, my Twitch and YouTube channels, and the Apple Podcast listing using the link bit.ly/CI Productions. Ember, where can people find you around the internet?
Oh, the easiest thing to do is go to 9of12.com. That's NINEOF12.com. It'll point you to my Discord channel and all my other shows.
Cool. And you can find some of Theo's work over at swellcast.com/thatoneweirdo. Not sure if he's started his next show yet. I don't know about that yet, but we'll find out from him, and yeah, we'll get that going as well. All right, everyone, until next time, we are the Part-Time Gamers clocking out.